Hebrews, Hebrews, Hebrews. This is Israel Wake Up. This is our Women's Advanced Bible Study Night, 16th of July, 2026. Okay, we'll be reading our 3 chapters. We'll be reading out of Genesis chapters 29, 30, and 31. We're going to read each chapter and break it down. You can go to our YouTube channel, the Israel Wake Up. Check out our videos. We have over 300 or so videos you can look at, examine, and get the meat out. And these videos will lead you to the truth of the Holy Scriptures. Okay. This Israel Wake Up is our Women's Advanced Bible Study Night. It's a sister channel to Prophets of Awakening. And we here every Thursday night for any other women that want to join in and get involved in this in the conversation. You can call 337-802-0889 and we can get you the link where you can come in through the channel and have a closer encounter with the conversation. Okay. For those that don't know, this is a non-Messianic channel. We deal with the Tanakh and the Torah. Tanakh being the Old Testament, so-called Book of Remembrance. It's from Genesis to Malachi. We don't subscribe to the New Testament. Okay. The Torah is the first 5 books of the Old Testament that was given to Moses by our Savior and our Redeemer and our Deliverer, the Lord of Hosts. Okay. This channel was created to aid and assist our Hebrews, who are waking up to that true identity and also understanding who their Savior and their Redeemer truly is. Shalom and welcome to this channel and welcome to our Women's Advanced Bible Study. Okay, we're going to do our normal, which is a moment of silence, prayer, songs. We have our Women's Health Moment with Michelle, current events, need to know information, and then we'll open it up for some Q&A. Then our topic for discussion is the Trump team plans to call the left wing terrorists. Okay, and then we have our scripture reading, which is Genesis chapter 29, 30, and 31. Like I said, we'll read it each chapter and break down each chapter. Okay, talk about it, and then we're going to pick a scripture at the end of the class, break that scripture down, and then we'll close out. Okay, this moment of silence is for the Lord of hosts and all that He's doing to bring about our prophesied deliverance in these last days. Okay. Oh Lord, we come before Thee this day, bow down, honoring You, praising You, and believing in You. And we thank You for Your wisdom and Your knowledge that You have poured out upon us. And through Your prophets, You have revealed the times that we as Jacob's children would endure tribulation. Keep us, O Lord, guide us and deliver us. And we see You now within the Holy Scriptures, O Lord, and we trust You, and we will when we trust You with all our heart and our soul. Keep not Thy silence, but shine forth on our enemies with Thy great power and Thy great glory. Peace be unto You. Okay, so we're gonna read a Psalms right here.
Shalom, everyone. Shalom, Brother Leonard. Psalms 15. Lord, who will abide in the tabernacle? Who shall dwell in Thy holy hill? He that walketh uprightly and worketh righteousness, and speaketh the truth in his heart. He that backeth not in his tongue, nor doeth evil to his neighbor, nor taketh up a reproach against his neighbor, in whose eyes are veiled person is contempt, but in the honoreth him in fear to the Lord. He that sweareth to his own hurt and chaineth not. He that putteth not out his money to usury. Sorry, that's not right.
Usury.
Near, sir,
Usury.
usury, nor taketh reward against the innocent. He that doeth these things shall never be moved. That was Psalms 15, 1 through 5.
Okay, you got a name on that?
Yes, sir. So when David asked about who should abide in the tabernacle, and the tabernacle is that tent that was made for to come in to see the Lord, see God, or to worship. I mean, they won't see him, but they're able to come in. So he was asking about you have to be blameless to come in to see to um, be there with God. But this is all about, I think, about your heart, how your mind and your heart that you have towards the Lord of hosts, and how you present yourself to Him and with pureness within yourself. Is that what you're speaking on?
It's the law. The Israelite is keeping the law, the statutes and the judgments. He says, if you love him, you keep his laws and his statutes. So he's talking about the Torah. You either keep the Torah,
The Ten Commandments?
right? The Ten Commandments and the Torah, our culture. We got statutes, we got laws, and we got statutes and judgments. Anybody that abide by that can dwell in the tabernacle.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else got anything on that? Okay, so we'll go ahead and go to our women's health moment with Michelle. Okay.
Please know that the information that is shared is intended for general, informational, and educational purposes only and is not medical advice or recommended treatment. Tonight's discussion is about the law that commanded the children of Israel not to eat and drink blood. The Bible's first prohibition against consuming blood comes in the book of Genesis, chapter 9, verses 2 through 4, where the Lord of hosts tells Noah, "And the fear of you and the dread of you shall be upon every beast of the earth, and upon every fowl of the air, upon all that moveth upon the earth, and upon all the fishes of the sea. Into your hand are they delivered. Every moving thing that liveth shall be meat for you. Even as the green herb, I have given you all things." Verse 4, "But flesh with the life thereof, which is the blood thereof, shall ye not eat." This passage comes after the Lord of hosts blessed Noah and his sons following the flood, giving them the authority over the animals and setting dietary guidelines for the children of Israel. It teaches that blood represents the life of the animal and must not be consumed. God designated blood to be placed on the altar for atonement. He states in the book of Leviticus, chapter 17, verse 11, "For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make an atonement for your souls. For it is the blood that maketh an atonement for the soul." In Deuteronomy chapter 12, God begins teaching the Israelites about the covenant governing his relationship with them. He zeroed in on worship with detailed stipulations about how his people ought to love, honor, and glorify the Lord their God, the Lord of hosts, the one true God, who is to be distinct and set apart from the worship of pagan deities and idols. Among pagan rituals was the practice of drinking the blood of sacrificed animals and even the blood of human sacrifices, as we see in John chapter 6, verse 54 through 56. "Whoso eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood hath eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. For my flesh is meat indeed, and my blood is drink indeed." Verse 56, "He that eateth my flesh and drinketh my blood dwelleth in me, and I in him." So this should let us know that there is no such culture as Hebrew Christians, because this pagan passage speaks about Jesus' sacrificial death and the spiritual nourishment he offers in representing union with him, an idol, as consuming blood was forbidden under the Old Testament law. The Lord of hosts also gave this command to protect the Israelites' health, since scripture says, "Do not eat the blood, because the blood is the life." We now know that many diseases are potentially contained in the blood and can be transmitted throughout the body and to other people. Today, health warnings still note that raw or undercooked meat, poultry, fish, or eggs may increase the risk of foodborne illness. Eating raw or undercooked products can expose you to harmful bacteria, viruses, and parasites that are normally destroyed during proper cooking. Common pathogens include, sorry about the feedback, Salmonella and E. coli. Being aware of these risks and following proper food safety practices can help you enjoy meals safely while minimizing the chance of illness. I will be reading from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 12, verses 27 and 28. Verse 27 states, "And thou shalt offer thy burnt offerings, the flesh and the blood, upon the altar of the Lord thy God. And the blood of thy sacrifices shall be poured out upon the altar of the Lord thy God, and thou shalt eat the flesh." 28. Observe and hear all these words which I command thee, that it may go well with thee and with thy children after thee forever, when thou doest that which is good and right in the sight of the Lord thy God. Tonight's discussion was about how the law commanded the children of Israel not to eat and drink blood. And I read from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 12, verses 27 and 28. Shalom, everyone.
Okay, appreciate that information. Any comments on that? Anybody got anything? Okay. So with that being said, we're gonna move on to our current events, and like I said, we'll play each video, and then we'll break it down. Okay.
What has been creating all this financial wealth that's been making trillions of dollars for financial investors has not been profits necessarily. It's been the ability to borrow at a low interest rate, including low interest rates in Japan to buy U.S. securities.
So the title of this is "We're Headed for a Depression That's Worse Than 2008."
Securities, and to bid up the prices of stock simply is part of a huge credit overhead. So it's not a profit bubble. It's a Ponzi scheme, capital gains bubble. It's a credit creation bubble.
You know, what you're calling the monopoly economy, the rentier economy, the economy of unearned incomes, that is what is increasing in size. And by the way, we have not added into our discussion the fact that people always claim that the United States is still richer. But, you know, the difference between the average income, which is somewhere in like 80,000 or something, and the median income, which is closer to like 40 or 50,000, is enormous. Hello and welcome to the 80th Geopolitical Economy Hour, the socialist and anti-imperialist conversation that illuminates the fast-changing political economy and geopolitical economy of our time. I'm Radhika Desai, and you're watching Radhika Desai, Geopolitical Economist. But before we continue with this episode, let me take a minute to remind you to please like and share this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and if you can, please donate. You can do this through our Patreon or by becoming a paid subscriber on Substack or becoming a member here on YouTube. It helps us to produce high quality content and keep it free. And now back to the main topic of the day. Today's Geopolitical Economy Hour is our regular one with Michael Hudson, which we do every fortnight. Welcome, Michael.
Glad to be back.
Great, Michael. So today we've decided to talk about the US economy under Trump. Now, of course, Trump is doing everything in his powers to suck the oxygen out of the story about the economy. And that includes going to and continuing to escalate wars and all sorts of diplomatic and other shenanigans that he is constantly involved in, berating leaders of other countries and, generally speaking, trying to make a big spectacle of himself, basically. And, this is what he's done with his attack on Iran, most recently with all these crazy bets that he's making, that he's going to charge 20% to all the ships that pass through. And in return, he's going to be the guardian of the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, how can he charge 20% to anyone unless Iran lets these ships through? And how can he be the guardian of the Strait of Hormuz? Iran is completely in charge of it. Anyway, so all of these shenanigans are designed to distract attention from the big story, I would say the biggest story, which is the condition of the US economy. So notwithstanding his unhinged and genocidal antics, the topic of the US economy simply will not go away. The world is settling down to the summer before the midterm elections, and assessments of the US economy are proliferating. And that's what we are going to talk about today, because the US voter votes on her economic condition, and her economic condition is not looking good at all. Michael, what are the headlines from your point of view?
Well, the headline is really that the US economy is all about Donald Trump right now. And of course, the main thing, as you just pointed out, is the war with Iran that he's escalating. Instead of rolling things back, he's bombing Iran. Iran has taken a response that is irreversible. It's closed down the trade, not only in the Strait of Hormuz, but in the Red Sea with the Yemenis support and all of that, and bombing Bahrain's port. So it is absolutely certain that there's going to be a shutdown in the oil trade, and that's going to affect, as we've talked about, the entire world economy and push it into what I think is going to be as serious a depression of the 1930s. That's the US economy. And what we can do is to spell out how this is happening, because what is the US economy? It's been a huge expansion of financial wealth without any real expansion in living standards or real wages or prosperity for most of the population. And all of this financial wealth has been based on credit. It's not that companies are making more profits. The whole leadership of the stock market has been this 7 AI companies linked to computers and all of that. The AI is not making a profit. It's all speculation on, well, we're going to expand and there's going to be a huge market as everybody's going to use AI. But all of this market is dependent on computer chips that run on energy. And we're going to see energy prices go way up, and that means electricity prices are going to go up. So I wanted to, for one paragraph, stretch out why the oil war is so important when we talk about the economy. That's the fake junk economics that has shaped the whole concept of gross national product, is a reaction against the whole of classical economics and Marxism that we've been talking about.
And here's the practical demonstration of exactly what you're saying. I mean, basically, under neoliberalism, since the 1980s, the era of deregulation, etc., has also been an era of financialization and of deindustrialization. So here is a chart showing manufacturing employment in absolute numbers, okay, from about 1940 onwards. So you can see manufacturing employment remained quite elevated right up until 1980, from which time then it begins a secular decline. It declines particularly steeply in the new century, And then from 2010 onwards, it kind of stabilizes a bit. But what we've seen as well is that, and this is basically just the same chart, but blown up, showing us the years from 2021 onwards. So you had the COVID dip, of course, and then there was a recovery. But since that time, it has been declining, and here's Trump's inauguration, January 2025. It has continued declining. All the shenanigans around tariffs, notwithstanding all the pain that they have caused, not only to to people in the United States, but elsewhere, what you see is that these tariff shenanigans have achieved nothing.
Wrong in the economy. Trump has made a list, and he said, how can I really destroy the entire American economy and go down in history as a man that has ended the American century? I'll be famous. Here's my list. I'm going to do everything. He's done it.
Okay. Any comments on that? It says we headed for a depression, and it's going to be far worse than 2008. And we're looking right at it. Anybody got any comments on that? Okay. Okay. Let's see. Okay.
We as a nation, the question I think a lot of people have, I don't know, Carol was asking this question earlier, are we less secure or are we more secure the longer this war between the US and Iran goes on?
Are we less secure? I think the big question that you have to look at this from a few angles. One is obviously U.S. bases in the region and U.S. allies, so their willingness to sort of partner with the United States in the long term. Big question there. They are obviously getting a lot more anxious given that Iran's way of responding has been to attack U.S. allies as well as U.S. bases. So service members in the region certainly less secure. I would say that hasn't really bled over into the United States itself, though obviously there are assassination plots against the president where they've accused Iran of trying to do that. So that is a big concern. Economically, I think on this very much an open question and a much more difficult one, oil going back up. The president had said when he had signed that ceasefire, listen, we wanted to avoid economic catastrophe. Well, here we are again. They're looking to potentially ramp up strikes again, and you can bet that will have real aftershocks for the economy, and it will hit people's pocketbooks back home.
Well, speaking of such, the U.S. forces began conducting a new wave of strikes on Iran, so it continues. And it goes on and on. One of the things that we have been talking about as a team, Nick, is military stockpiles. Where are we? You've got the Ukraine war with Russia, whatever assist the U.S. has been providing there. Obviously, its efforts, its actions with the war with Iran. Where are we? Just yesterday, President Trump was talking about, calling military contractors to speed up production. A lot of them were at this event in Pennsylvania with him.
Right. Well, there are so many issues there, but certainly the information we have here, the administration is not disclosing the extent of its stockpiles for some of its more advanced weapon systems, but certainly when you fire a lot of cruise missiles and bombs at Iran, that means you can't use those weapons or stockpile those weapons if conflict should arise elsewhere. We've seen that strain, especially on the ballistic missiles, on Patriot missiles and things like that, which cost millions of dollars and take years to produce.
And the many months that it took over a decade ago for the JCPOA to be negotiated. What is the U.S. strategy around the nuclear enrichment program in Iran right now? Because it seems like sometimes we hear about from the president about actually physically going and getting what he calls the dust versus versus bombing facilities that intelligence and in some cases reporting says where they could be working on this stuff. What is the strategy with that part of this mission?
I mean, this is a great question. You know, the administration may have a strategy. They have been inconsistent, I would say, in communicating that strategy. I mean, the president, when he announced the ceasefire a few weeks ago, said, hey, maybe Iran should have the right to enrich. You know, other countries are allowed to enrich, or they have civilian nuclear programs. And so it wouldn't be fair for Iran not to get that. Of course, that goes against sort of his own programming that he'd been saying for years, you know, and that a lot of his advisors have been saying Iran should not have the right to enrich uranium at all.
He was
going
supposed to, right,
Yeah.
but this is as Lindsey Graham's funeral service has been pushed off and postponed a little bit. I don't know, you know, Nick, I am shocked. I think a lot of folks are shocked that here we are still talking about this. I think the assumption was that this would be done early. I think anybody who understood Iran and the Middle East would have said differently when this happened. Where do we go from here? How do you guys, I mean, markets sometimes look through it. Markets sometimes don't look through it.
Right.
And so I guess we're just going to have to wait and see. I don't know. Is there a time, some point, do you expect the president to talk about it in his speech tonight? We are hearing it's going to be maybe about elections, but I'm just curious.
Right. I mean, I think it seems likely that he would address it in some way, but the president really faces a big choice here, because what Iran has shown is that with relatively few resources and despite the intense U.S. bombing campaign, it can really lock up the Strait of Hormuz and keep ships from going through it. So it doesn't need a lot of resources to do that, because it's shippers that are going to make the decision about whether they want to risk that. And right now they're showing they don't want to risk it. That is not something the president has a lot of control over. So in a way, he's really sort of stuck in a bind here. He wants this thing to end, but the only way it seems to get it to end would be to really, in a way, counterintuitively ramp up the military campaign to a degree that he just does not want to do. So it's a real bind. I mean, I don't see how this thing ends anytime soon, especially given the complete lack of trust between the two sides. So it feels a little bit like we're going to be in this cycle where the president promises a ceasefire, then maybe we get a ceasefire, then we return to conflict. That's going to happen in many more cycles or repeats of that cycle to come.
Yeah.
Okay. Any feedback on that? So we back in war with Iran. They back striking each other again, and the Strait of Hormuz is closed, and that's why I think that's why. Matter of fact, I know that's why they are saying that the gloom and doom of a depression is coming, because the oil is gone. We don't have no fertilizer. So our food supply has been, we're not gonna have no food supply in a minute, because we don't have the fertilizer for the next growing season. So it's not looking good. Anybody got any comments on that? Anybody did any research on it or heard anything about it?
Shalom. I have a little comment on it. Earlier this year, they were speaking about cyber attack, and that's with Iran. So if they work their playbook on taking out things through the cyber attack, all the, you know, military thing they're talking about, they're just, to me, what he said is just drawing them near for that, but they can just boom, 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 take out everything here when they do the cyber attack. And that's something that they didn't mention, but that's something they were mentioning earlier this year about how they can attack the, things that's happening. And then not only that, President Trump, de-escalated the employment in the CIA, and taking all those, locking down things like that. And it's just going to be crazy, because not only that we are being with Iran, India has a part in it that's going to hurt them. Now, when they hurt U.S., some things that U.S. is working with and countries they're working with is going to get hurt by that also. So I don't know if the other countries will, come in and try to help out, or they'll just sit back. Shalom.
Okay. Anybody else got anything? Okay, so what I'm at now is some need to know information, and I've kind of been talking about it the last month or so about how they trying to go through our Congress into our to the House of Representatives to merge our military with Israel military, and I think it came to a head today. I got a couple of videos on there. We're gonna play them, and then we'll talk about it. Okay, so here we go. This is the first one right here.
Here in the Washington area, on Capitol Hill, the Senate Democrats, Bernie Sanders and Chris Van Hollen, are actually trying to block a bill that would effectively merge the U.S. military with the Israeli military. A military which has been found by the International Court of Justice and effectively by the ICC of serious war crimes and genocide in the Gaza Strip. It would allow Israel to infiltrate U.S. weapons systems as well as quantum computing, and to put it as succinctly as possible, it would establish a framework for integrating Israeli-developed technologies into U.S. manufacturing, the whole acquisition process. It would be impossible to disentangle the two militaries if this bill passed. Section 224 of the NDAA. And this would apply across all areas of military, autonomous systems, AI, cyber, biotech, missile defense. The whole defense industrial base would be infiltrated and merged with Israel's. It, to me, in my opinion, it establishes the framework for a military coup, and those who vote for this are committing an act of treason. And so I wanted to highlight this bill, which is not getting sufficient attention. And I thought the most appropriate person to discuss this, the most articulate person to discuss this, would be my good friend, former U.S. Representative and Democratic presidential candidate, Dennis Kucinich. Dennis, welcome to the Gray Zone.
And welcome home.
Thank you.
It's good to be with you, and you have touched on some of the concerns about this planned merger. The language of the bills, which is now Section 219, because some of the other matters that were in the original bill have been jettisoned. But Section 219 now creates this integration, which is a merger because it eliminates duplications. Think about this. You know, the classic corporate merger eliminates duplications. It integrates functions and would make a profit. In this case, it's Israel that stands to profit from being able to have direct influence over what will unfortunately become a $1.5 trillion annual budget in the National Defense Authorization Act of 2027, which is before Congress right now. So this, as you point out, hasn't received a lot of attention, although tonight I understand the Senate made an attempt to bring cloture to the NDAA, and that they failed to do that. So there's still a fight in the Senate and the House as to whether the bill, either version of the bill, is going to get to the floor of either of the House of Congress. But what they're trying to do is a merger that actually sets the stage for forever wars. And we know, and you probably know better than most people, the extent to which the cooperation has already been very involved, very toxic and murderous. But we're talking about a merger that merges our most sensitive areas, the forever wars include the wars of the future, which are going to be more high tech. You put Israel and the U.S. together in high tech, increasingly high tech wars with genocide as one of the outputs. There's serious legal exposure for U.S. officials because what we have is a direct involvement in genocide, a direct involvement in ethnic cleansing, a direct involvement in theft of land. There hasn't been any public review of this. There's no separate public debates. There's been no hearings. They've just pushed this thing through as a
Quickly, one or two political questions about the political future we face here, since you were a presidential candidate, a mayor, you were in the House of Representatives, and you were in the Democratic Party, and you were one of probably the last Democrats that I would ever potentially get behind. What do you think of Ro Khanna and even Rahm Emanuel, who lost part of his finger in a kitchen incident in Israel while he was volunteering with the Israeli military, taking a much harder line against Israel and pushing some sort of reorientation of the U.S.-Israeli relationship? Does this spell an actual change of policy within the Democratic Party, or are they simply trying to paper over the contradiction between a Democratic Party base, a constituency that wants real sanctions on Israel, that wants a real arms embargo, and a leadership that is enthralled to the donor class, including AIPAC?
Well, there's two different people you mentioned, and
yeah, they're definitely different. But
I served with Rahm Emanuel.
Yeah,
and I think I understand him very well.
Yeah,
he is one of the most skillful politicians that I've ever met. He really is slick, but that's not necessarily a compliment. What I'm saying is that he can read the room better than most people. He was very successful in helping guide Clinton and others along the way. He's got an instinct for politics, so he sees which way it's going. But there is this question of where he's been, and that he would have to defend his previous positions. And I think that he would find it a little bit difficult the way the Democratic Party is moving as of late. Ro Khanna is newer to this, and he's being challenged right now from the left on the question of is this just a form of liberal Zionism? But I think it's important that he has teamed up with Tom Massey because he has given the gloss of a bipartisan effort to Tom Massey's efforts. Massey is...
So, like I said, they're trying to, their objective is to merge the Israeli government. Like the man just said, they at the International Criminal Court for crimes against humanity. So why would America merge with them? But both of them is in criminal court. So we go to the other one right here, and I did not open it up for some Q&A on that. Right here. Okay, let me see where I'm at. Yeah, here you go. Check it out. So they had a vote today, right? And this will happen.
Whenever it comes in, as we mentioned just before, to break the House, failed to pass an amendment by Kentucky Republican Tom Massey to cut off aid to Israel. More than 100 Democrats voted for it. Only Massey, as a Republican, voted in favor of it. All the other Republicans, no. I want to turn to our political panel. Democratic strategist, former press secretary to then Vice President Joe Biden, Kendra Barkoff-Lammy, and Republican strategist.
So they got a whiff of it, now they ain't cutting it off. So check it out.
And former Chief of Staff to Vice President Mike Pence, Mark Short. Great to have you here.
Thanks, Major.
Mark, give me your analysis of this vote. So Massey by himself. Republicans clearly whip this, leave him on his own, and see what the Democrats do among themselves to fight this out.
Well, look, I think that this close to election season, when Thomas Massey is not well liked in the conference, there's no doubt they're very comfortable with him offering this on the floor, believing that this is what a lot of Democrats would vote exactly as they did. And I think that the Democrats have a growing anti-Semitic problem in their caucus, and it's only going to get worse when a lot of these Democrat socialists they've been pushing forward, and one nominations will likely be there next year.
I want to clarify, because do you believe any vote that questions U.S. aid to Israel is by definition anti-Semitic, or could it be a policy disagreement with the sitting Israeli government?
It can be a policy disagreement, but I also think they have an anti-Semitic problem. I think you have people who have basically been nominated this cycle in their party who have basically called for the end of Israel. You have people in their party who have gone further than just saying they want to cut off aid to Israel. So this creates the dichotomy the Republicans want to say, we stand with Israel when Democrats don't.
Kendra?
I mean, I just can't. I don't go with that viewpoint. I would just say, I worked with the survivors of that were held hostages and those family members
After October 7th.
After October 7th. And we met with more Democrats than Republicans. And I don't think that happens with anti-Semitic members of Congress. And so I think there's a lot of people in Israel that live there that have a lot of different religions. I think this is not a political decision in terms of them being anti-Semitic. I think that they just don't like what the current prime minister is doing. I think, look, Joe Biden served as a public servant for almost 50 years. He did that because he wanted to make the country better. And at the end of the day, he has a truth that he wants to tell, and he should be able to talk about it in the way he wants to talk about it.
I'm going to skip over you on this, Mark Short, not because I don't think you have something valid to say, but because I want to have something that is more personal to your relationship with the former Vice President Mike Pence, because it was raised by J.D. Vance, because he recorded podcasts with Joe Rogan and name-checked your former boss. So let's listen.
If you look at what Mike Pence or some of the conservative hawks, like people who voted for us but have been very critical of me, very critical of the administration, if you actually look at what they're proposing, they just want the military campaign to go on forever, and they can't actually identify what it is that they're trying to accomplish.
Mark Short, the floor is yours.
Well, look, I think that it's odd that he's name-checked the former vice president in a couple recent interviews. It shows an incredible amount of sensitivity, it appears, on his part. I know.
What do you think that's about?
I know how hard the job is to be vice president of the United States, and I think that
especially under this president,
certainly, especially under this president, Mike Pence does. And I think there were a couple of times when Donald Trump asked Mike to go renegotiate the Remain in Mexico policy. Two, when Erdogan was slaughtering Kurds and crossed the border, he asked Mike Pence to go to Turkey and help solve that. So he knows what's been asked by the president to go do these tasks. I think perhaps he's a little bit sensitive that his effort to appease the greatest sponsor of terrorism in the world is not really working, because it's hard to explain why he's appease Iran. I mean, it seems
Vice President Vance.
Yeah,
that's why clear with what you're saying there. What you're throwing down.
It was his plan, and I think clearly now the president's begun to turn away from that. So it seems like there's a remarkable, I think, insecurity about what his own position's been.
Kendra, you just heard it. Republican infighting. If there was Democratic infighting on the one topic, there's Republican infighting right here, right now.
I'd actually say it's additionally insulting because the vice president has family members who are serving in uniform now. To suggest he wants eternal wars is ridiculous.
Okay, we got 10 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I think throw Mark Rubio in the mix and you'll have a whole lot of fun. But I do think that there's some competition there, and Vance's ego is clearly very bruised.
Ego.
Okay. Any comments on that? Any other videos? Anything? I got anything?
Shalom, everyone. I would just want to back up far as why they want to, the reason why the members in Congress is trying to sneak this bill through right now. I mean, it's buried down in there, and because we have the social media and people want to know things now, and they put it out there that a lot of people finding out what's going on. This whole thing about trying to make those two connect together, it's going to just ruin everything, because if they do that, they're going to have to know all of the secrets or the strategies of the U.S. They're supposed to share everything, and who's to say that they really, want to be together, and he wants to take over with the president, because this here, once Trump is out, if this ever happens, which I'm hoping it never does, the presidents that's coming next won't be able to do anything about it. This is like a done deal now. And so often they change up the president in or the commander over there in Israel. So, every 4 years we get someone new. They don't. So it's going to be, it's really crazy.
Okay, anybody else?
Shalom. Yes, sir, Brother Leonard. In regards to what Sister Cheryl just said, I'm interested to know what you think. I do feel like everybody that's voting yay on this knows exactly and plans that and hopes and plans exactly what Sister Cheryl said happens, because they already agree with following Israel anyway. So whether Trump lasts and he's a dictator under the leader of Israel, or whether somebody else gets that position, whoever is president next, if anything like that was to happen, it's like a given that they already want to be under Israel anyway. I just, like me, if I wouldn't decide to run for presidency knowing I was going to be a buddy or even under the leader of Israel. The clips you just played, the last two, are very interesting because, Brother Leonard, I had, and I don't know if anybody else did, excuse me, heard about a gentleman that was in college. He's a foreigner. There's a lot of students with green cards to get an education here, but they were pro-Palestinian way back from 2025 when all of this stuff started. And they were put in ICE detention centers, and people have been trying to get them out of the country like quickly, more quickly than anybody. But this current administration has yet to say why they are leaving. Like, there's no legal reason. So because of this, this gentleman and others have filed lawsuits against the White House administration, and they've named specific organizations and people, including Marco Rubio, including the Heritage Foundation. And the man being interviewed, one of the lawyers said, because we know the Heritage Foundation is just, they blatantly tell people they're trying to be with Israel, and they tell people that the administration is helping us do this. And then you have people in the administration that speak too highly of the Heritage Foundation, and they try to throw people, as the reporter asked one of the guests, they try to throw people that are immigrants away into these centers and call them anti-Semitic just because they don't agree with what's happening in Israel. But just like nobody agrees with the Holocaust, it's backwards that the United States is all of a sudden agreeing with Israel, basically calling some other form of Holocaust to other nations. Shalom.
Okay. Anybody else? Got anything? Feedback. Okay, yeah. So when you understand what's at stake, they're not looking to have no other election. They're not looking to have no other president. They want to bring this thing to an end with this present administration. More so, me looking at it, November. So when you understand that, like I said, all of a sudden now we got congressmen and senators coming up dead. And then when you understand what's going on, these are people that's going against what Israel got going on. They didn't voice their opinion. So I'm looking for, based on just what happened, we had all these different Republicans, and Democrats that voted against this, and they cut it off. So you're gonna see I'm thinking you're gonna see a whole bunch of people coming up missing because of, like I said, what's at stake. They didn't play their hand on all the things they've been plotting to bring about this greater Israel and rebuild the temple, we at it now. Like that's what the Project 2025 was about, to usher that in. So everything on the line. So they can't. So anybody that comes in from these Republicans or from these politicians that go against them, I think it's going to be repercussions to it. Okay.
Brother Leonard, do you feel this the congressperson that put their vote to be with the Democrats, is that for show, or you feel like he's putting his foot down and saying that's enough, and basically he's at risk now?
Right. Well, it's like everybody, which is what a lot of hosts come in at. Everybody got their foot against the wall because both Republicans and Democrats, they've been bought and paid for by those Israelis with APAC. They've been bought and paid for, but now with everything being out and open the way it is, so they're looking at what decision they make, and they know the money that have been that they uh, invested in them, and then they're making a decision against Israel. So it's like they caught them between a rock and a hard place. For the longest they was able to hide. For a prime example is if you would have let them tell a story based on what this guy Jeffries, you would assume that he would have been all against the merger. Well, the Israeli government, military, and the U.S. military, but he for it. So
Yes, sir. I didn't know that until you said it.
right. So the thing is, they being exposed. That's like I said, it's a lot of those. And these people, these Israelis is stone cold killers. So when they looking at who voted against it and all that, they're looking at that. It's not like I said, what's at stake in these midterms is why you see all this drama going on with that Iran war, all that tied to what they trying to do. They want to discontinue the American government. There's a coup in place. So just when they need these people after all the money they've invested in them and they go against them, like I said, we already see 2 senators already came up missing. So you just gonna watch it play out. But a lot of people don't understand why these things are happening. So yeah. Okay. Anybody else got anything on that?
Yes, sir. Shalom, everyone. Um, Today, well, I think it was now it's going to be like 18 hours ago, when the appointed judge um, came to be judge. Trump fired him within 59 minutes, and he was not supposed to interfere with that. So I don't know about why did he do it, but the judge that he fired is going to take him to court. He's going to file a petition on that.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. He had his end. He had his very end because he's doing way too much. Uh, just like he just came up and he fired all the election committee all of a sudden. Just when we're getting close to the midterms, he didn't fire the whole election committee, which to me that would be conflict of interest. It's just like with the judge, that would be a conflict of interest. So I'm not understanding how he's able to do it. But hell, he had 32 counts, and he became the president. So it shouldn't be surprising. Okay.
yeah, yes, sir. And back in the news, as far as it goes with him, the $5 million lawsuit against his harassment or what he did to that woman is back inside the news again. And not only that, wouldn't that be something like treason that he's doing right now on all these acts that he's doing against the United States and not, for this country now, for Israel? and he's joining with them. That's something like treason, isn't it?
Right, right. Everything that happened. That's the crazy part about this whole administration. Everything that's going on is, I mean, you would never, it's unheard of. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it was unheard of. All the things that's happening, like I said, for him to have 32 count felony and still able to run for this White House is beyond me. So that's crazy. So that tells you right there how they feel about the average American and their rights, because everybody was violated on that. Okay.
Yes, sir. I just want to put one thing and then we go to the next one. The word, when he said he could kill someone and he would get away with it, that right there, when he first became president, that right there was something that he should never became president, just saying those words.
Right. Exactly. That's something. Okay. So with that being said, about a little dialogue, I'm gonna play this and then we'll talk about it. Okay. This got to do with the Ten Commandments. Got the point that the channel is making is that the Ten Commandments were given in Africa, not Asia, not Europe, but the Ten Commandments, Mount Sinai is in Africa.
Lord, if these words are truly for all generations, let no nation forget where you first spoke them.
All of human history, the foundation of Western legal and moral tradition. The rules that Judaism, Christianity, and Islam all treat as the direct words of God delivered to humanity were handed down on a mountain sitting on the African continent, not near Africa, not adjacent to Africa, on Africa. The Sinai Peninsula, where every serious tradition places Mount Sinai, is a piece of land that belongs to Egypt, has always belonged to Egypt, was administered as Egyptian sovereign territory for 3,000 years before Moses was born, and connects to the African continent through an unbroken land border that has existed since the planet arranged itself. The only body of water separating Sinai from the African mainland is the Suez Canal, and the Suez Canal was dug in 1869. Before 1869, you could walk from Mount Sinai to the heart of Africa without getting your feet wet. God did not hand Moses the law on a mountain in Europe. He did not hand it to him in Asia. He handed it to him in Africa. And tonight, we are going to make that case so airtight that the only argument left is whether you are willing to follow the evidence where it leads. The first thing that needs to be settled is the geography, because most people who have sat in churches and synagogues their entire lives have a mental map of the biblical world that was drawn by European cartographers with a specific set of assumptions baked in. Pull up a modern map of Egypt. The country sits in the northeastern corner of Africa. Its eastern edge extends into a triangular peninsula that juts between the Red Sea to the south, the Gulf of Suez to the west, and the Gulf of Aqaba to the east. That peninsula is called the Sinai. It is politically and nationally part of Egypt. It has been politically and nationally part of Egypt since Egypt has been a country. In terms of the continental divide used by modern geographers, the Sinai sits in a contested zone. Geologically, the Sinai Peninsula rests on the African tectonic plate, not the Arabian plate. The continental boundary is drawn differently by different authorities, with some geographers placing the Sinai in Asia and others treating it as part of Africa based on its tectonic and historical connections to the Egyptian mainland. But here is what is not contested by anyone. Before the Suez Canal was cut through the Isthmus of Suez in 1869, the Sinai Peninsula was physically connected to the African continent by a continuous land bridge. A person standing on Mount Sinai in 1200 BC or in 600 BC or on any date relevant to the biblical narrative was standing on a piece of ground that you could walk from Cairo to without crossing a single body of water. The modern political boundary between Africa and Asia in this region is a 19th century engineering project. The ancient geography is African. The ancient Egyptians did not treat the Sinai as a foreign land. They treated it as home territory. The Sinai Peninsula was known in ancient Egyptian texts as the land of turquoise because its mountains contain some of the most productive turquoise mines in the ancient world. And Egyptian pharaohs have been sending mining expeditions there since at least the Third Dynasty, around 2600 BC. The temple at Serabit el-Qadim on the Sinai, a major Egyptian religious and mining site, shows continuous Egyptian occupation and religious practice across roughly 1,500 years of documented history. Egyptian soldiers garrisoned the Sinai. Egyptian administrators governed it. Egyptian priests built temples there. The Sinai was not a no man's land between Egypt and somewhere else. It was an Egyptian province administered from the African heartland. To this 18, the meeting happens at the Mountain of God, the same location where the burning bush was, the same location where the 10 Commandments are later given. Jethro, the Midianite priest, comes to that mountain and offers burnt offerings and sacrifices to God. He performs priestly functions at a mountain that is simultaneously described as God's holy mountain and as accessible from Midian's territory. The mountain is in a zone between Midian and Egypt, which on any map you draw of the ancient world puts it somewhere in the Sinai Peninsula, on African administered ground. The 40 years of wilderness wandering that follows the Exodus is itself a geographic argument. After the Israelites leave Egypt, the route described in Exodus and Numbers traces a path through the Sinai Peninsula. They cross the Red Sea, which in the original Hebrew is Yam Suf, the Sea of Reeds, a body of water most scholars associate with the northern end of the Red Sea or the marshy lake region east of the Nile Delta. They travel through the wilderness of Shur, the African desert right there. They reach Elam, where there are 12 springs and 70 palm trees. They enter the wilderness of Sin between Elim and Sinai. They arrive at the wilderness of Sinai and camp before the mountain. That entire travel narrative places the Israelites in the Sinai Peninsula from the moment they leave Egypt until they reach the mountain. They do not cross the Gulf of Aqaba into Arabia. The text does not describe a sea crossing to reach the mountain. The sea crossing happens when they leave Egypt. After that crossing, everything is the Sinai Peninsula, which is African territory. For 40 years, the Israelites wandered in that same peninsula. 40 years on a piece of land you can drive across in 2 hours today. They lived in the Sinai. They built the tabernacle in the Sinai. They received the law in the Sinai. God met them, fed them with manna, brought water from rocks, and revealed his presence to them in the Sinai. Christian placement of Mount Sinai in the Sinai Peninsula of Egypt on African ground is ancient. It is the location given by the earliest church fathers who wrote about it. It is the location preserved in the monastic tradition since the 3rd and 4th centuries. It is the location the Byzantine Empire built a monastery on. The Saudi Arabia theory, by contrast, is modern. Its most prominent popular advocates were American and European adventurers and documentary filmmakers working in the late 20th century who found a mountain in northwestern Saudi Arabia with some scorched rock and decided it matched their reading of the Exodus narrative. The academic biblical archaeology community has not validated those claims. The scorched rock at Jabal al-Lawz has been explained by geologists through natural volcanic processes rather than miraculous fire. The theory depends on a reading of the Exodus route that requires the Israelites to have crossed the Gulf of Aqaba, a body of water significantly deeper and wider than the northern Red Sea crossing sites, with no compelling archaeological or textual evidence for that route. The traditional African location, Jabal Musa in the Egyptian Sinai, remains the academically mainstream position precisely because the textual, geographic, and archaeological evidence supports it most coherently. The African location is not the revisionist claim. The Saudi Arabia location is. Here is the deepest level of the argument, and it is not geographic. It is theological, and it is civilizational. 3 of the world's great religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, trace their most sacred foundational moment to a single event: God speaking to a human being on a mountain and delivering the moral and legal architecture of civilization. The 10 Commandments are not just a Jewish document. Christianity built its entire moral theology on them. Islam reveres Moses and the revelation at Sinai. Every Western legal system that traces itself to biblical moral foundations is tracing itself back to that mountain. Every courtroom with the 10 Commandments on the wall. Every sermon about thou shalt not kill. Every reference to divine law underlying human law. Every single one of those references goes back to one mountain. And that mountain is in Africa, not conceptually, not metaphorically, physically on the African continent, in a country called Egypt that Africans have lived in continuously since before any of these religions existed. The moment that Western civilization treats as the moral axis of history happened on African soil was received by a man who grew up in an African palace, who fled into an African desert, who married into an African family, who heard the voice of God in an African burning bush. Moses is an African story from beginning to end. The mountain is African from its geological foundation.
Okay. Any comments on that? What you think?
Shalom. I'm trying to picture it, and I wish they would have a map, or do they show a map on how it is? So I was listening, and I went to the back of the book of my Bible, and it shows um, something different with the traveling part of it. But but as he's speaking, I can see what he's saying about it.
Right.
And there's no Middle East. I mean, they're saying Middle East, but I don't see a Middle East what they're speaking on when they say Middle East. I don't think there's a Middle East. It's all Africa.
Right, right. So what he's saying is, it's been a deliberate act to dislocate the biblical narrative from Egypt. That's why when you go to the back of the Bible, that's the narrative they gave us. That's the route they gave us to disconnect us from understanding that all this stuff went down in Africa, and which shows to the people is black. The whole situation, like he just said, the whole situation is African. It all happened in Africa before the Suez Canal. Like he said, it wasn't nobody. There was no crossing no water. But they've reconstructed it. You know, they reconstructed the story, and they even try to reconstruct the land, the geographical places. Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So with that being said, the topic for discussion, I'll play that, then we'll read those 3 chapters.
Hey guys, so disastrous breaking news.
So I was telling you about they're gonna, you gotta, from this point on, they're gonna be attacking. You're gonna see a lot of goings on before this midterms, because everything they've been plotting and planning for the last 2,500 years or so is down to this midterm thing. Okay.
News for y'all. Steve Miller doing a speech in Washington, D.C. at this event that already sounds super spooky. The ministerial on the resurgence of political terrorism. You're going to be shocked to find out who the so-called terrorists are. They're you guys, the voters overall, left wing, he says. But it's not just about the left wing. This is really important. I'm going to show you the video in a second. But this is how they start. And to be fair, our side also called a lot of the right-wing attacks, right-wing terrorism. And I did too, by the way. And so I feel bad about that, not because some of those vicious attacks were more terrorist in nature in that they targeted civilians, had a political agenda, etc. No, technically that was correct. What Stephen Miller is talking about is not even about violent attacks. He's just doing it as a general label. You're going to see it with your own eyes in a second. But overall, when the uniparty's in power on the Republican side, they want to call the left-wing terrorists. When they're in power on the Democratic side, they want to call the right-wing terrorists. My thesis is that this, first of all, it obviously doesn't have anything to do with terrorism. Like, at least when Biden was doing it, they were referring to actual acts of significant violence with political manifestos targeting civilians, right? In this case, it's just a left-wing ideology overall. But either way, guys, this is for the surveillance state to come for all of us. This isn't actually a left-right thing. This is it sounds like it is, and if you're on the left, you should of course be deeply concerned about it, as you're about to see. But overall, the surveillance state wants to tighten the grip on us. In fact, he's going to do massive and really telling projection as to what his real plans are. I'm going to show that to you in a second. Tonight, we got the show live at 6 o'clock, but I want to do this breaking story for you guys because I found it so outrageous. And on tonight's Young Turks, right here on this YouTube channel at 6 o'clock Eastern, we're going to have Brian Graham as my co-host, so it should be really interesting. Some amazing stories out of Dropside News, his organization as well, including tonight, talking about how the Iranians sent a secret message to JV Vance of all people. Why? They said they were worried that Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff were trying to use the peace negotiations to enrich themselves. Okay, and we'll give you the latest developments on the Iran war, and they are not good, unfortunately. But that's tonight at 6 o'clock. Now let's watch this. Let me share this with you guys. And this is when I try to figure out how to do things. Let's see if I can get it right. Okay, what do we share screen? Here we go. Boom.
Security and the survival of our Republican form of government. President Trump issued a directive.
And now, what left-wing violence? What's he even referring to? like if you were new to this and you just started watching this speech, you'd be like, oh my God, is the Capitol beset by, anarchists and communists? And are we about to lose the White House? What left-wing violence are you talking about? Okay, so, I mean, he doesn't even have any examples. I'm not saying that no left-winger has ever done violence. If you went back a little while, you might be able to find one or two instances. By the way, you would find, fill in the blank on the adjective violence. You could find black violence, white violence, Muslim violence, Jewish violence, Christian violence, left-wing violence, right-wing violence. You could find in a lot of those categories, you could find thousands upon thousands of instances. Or like in this one, you could find 1.5. I go, that's it, left-wing violence. But there's a reason why he's not stating it, because it's microscopic and not at all relevant, and he's trying to make it seem like it's gigantic when it's no such thing.
In our parlance, it's called a National Security Presidential Memorandum, or NSPM. NSPM 7, to be exact, that directs, for the first time in American history, all of our law enforcement and intelligence agencies to work together to disrupt, identify, defund, debank, arrest, and prosecute these terrorists that are operating in our country.
Okay, now we have a massive problem. So, first of all, he switched from violence to general political terrorists. Second of all, we're going to identify them. So we're going to.
So he back to National Guard. He got National Guard in D.C. and you see what he's saying. He's saying that the American people are the terrorists. So he's setting up the stage for this chaos for November.
Witch hunt to find left-wing people in politics, presumably. Then we're going to investigate them. Notice the order. No, he didn't mention crime in the beginning. We investigate the crime and we find out the reason behind the crime. No, he went to, we investigate the political position, see who has it, then identify them, then investigate them, and then see what to charge them with. Already epic disaster.
Exactly.
But wait, it gets worse. Did you notice the most important thing he said, in my opinion?
Chaos.
We're going to defund and debank them. Okay, now the right wing has already seen this happen to them from time to time. And so, brother, again, this is not left or right. I mean, he's talking completely about the left wing here. And this seems to be an extreme right winger who's now the right-hand man of the president, trying to attack the left wing and make us sound like we're terrorists or against America. That's a huge part of it, of course. Obviously, it's right there. He just said it, right?
So, like I said, you can see them setting the stage. Like I said, they don't want no election. They want to suspend the midterm. Okay. So, with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and go to our. Anybody got anything on that? Okay, we're gonna go to our reading, scripture reading. We reading Genesis chapter 29, 30, and 31. Okay, we're gonna read each chapter and we'll break it down. You want to read 29, Brittany?
Yes, sir. I can read chapter 29 of Genesis.
Genesis 29.
Okay. Genesis 29. Then Jacob went on his journey and came into the land of the people of the east. And he looked, and behold, a well in the field, and lo, there were 3 flocks of sheep lying by it. For out of that well they watered the flocks, and a great stone was upon the well's mouth. And thither were all the flocks gathered, and they rolled the stone from the well's mouth, and watered the sheep, and put the stone again upon the well's mouth in his place. And Jacob said unto them, My brethren, whence be ye? And they said, Of Haran we are. And he said unto them, Know ye Laban, the son of Nahor? And they said, We know him. And he said unto them, Is he well? And they said, He is well. And behold, Rachel his daughter cometh with the sheep. And he said, Lo, it is yet high day, neither is it time that the cattle should be gathered together. Water ye the sheep, excuse me, and go and feed them. And they said, We cannot until all the flocks be gathered together, until they roll the stone from the well's mouth. Then we water the sheep. And while he yet spake with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she kept them. And it came to pass, when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, that Jacob went near, that Jacob went near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. And Jacob kissed Rachel, and he lifted up his voice and wept. And Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's brother, and that he was Rebekah's son. And she ran and told her father. And it came to pass, when Laban heard the tidings of Jacob, his sister's son, that he ran to meet him, and embraced him, and kissed him, and brought him to his house. And he told Laban all these things. And Laban said to him, Surely thou art my bone and my flesh. And he abode with him in the space of a month. And Laban said unto Jacob, Because thou art my brother, shouldest thou therefore serve me for naught? Tell me, what shall thy wages be? And Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah was tender-eyed, but Rachel was beautiful and well-favored. And Jacob loved Rachel, and said, I will serve thee 7 years for Rachel, thy younger daughter. And Laban said, It is better that I give her to thee, than that I should give her to another man. Abide with me. And Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed unto him but a few days, for the love he had to her. And Jacob said to Laban, Give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go in unto her. And Laban gathered together all the men of the place, and made a feast. And it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah his daughter, and brought her to him, and he went in unto her. And Laban gave unto his daughter Leah Zilpah, his maid, for a handmaid. And it came to pass that in the morning, behold, it was Leah. And he said to Laban, What is this thou hast done unto me? Did not I serve with thee for Rachel? Wherefore then hast thou beguiled me? And Laban said, It must not be so done in our country, to give the younger before the firstborn. Fulfill her week, and we will give thee this also for the service which thou shalt serve with me yet 7 other years. And Jacob did so, and fulfilled her week. And he gave him Rachel his daughter to wife also. And Laban gave to Rachel his daughter Bilhah, his handmaid, to be her maid. And he went in also unto Rachel, and he loved also Rachel more than Leah, and served with him yet 7 other years. And when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived and bare a son, and she called his name Reuben, for she said, Surely the Lord hath looked upon my affliction. Now therefore my husband will love me. And she had conceived again and bare a son, and said, Because the Lord hath heard I was hated, he hath therefore given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon. And she conceived again and bare a son, and said, Now this time will my husband be joined unto me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore was his name called Levi. And she conceived again and bare a son, and said, Now will I praise the Lord. Therefore, she called his name Judah and left bearing. Shalom, that was chapter 29 of Genesis.
Okay, you got any feedback on that?
Yes, sir. Verse 25, the last sentence really, but I'll read it all. It came to pass that in the morning, behold, it was Leah, and he said to Laban, what is this thou hast done unto me? Did not I serve with thee for Rachel? Wherefore then hast thou beguiled me? That word sticks out like a sore thumb, because that's like the term they use about the serpent in the garden. So if you could just explain what's really happening here, because I know we talk about him having two, Leah and Rachel, and he has two wives, but it looks like trickery here. Shalom.
Well, it actually explains a lot. A lot of stuff. It says it came to pass in the morning, behold, it was Leah. So you got to look at that. Telling me he laid with a woman, and especially if he's supposed to be so in love with Rachel, but you can't tell that that wasn't Rachel in bed. You know what I'm saying? You gotta
Yes,
think.
sir.
You don't know the difference. But anyway, then the other part is, what is this that thou hast done? So we see right here that he laid with Leah in the nighttime. He laid with her, and then that morning he asked the question, what is this that thou hast done? Ain't that what Amalek said with Rebecca? What is this that
Yes.
thou hast done? See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm saying, to justify what I'm saying, but that I've been saying all along, why is Esau so harried? Because of Amalek laid with Rebecca. It's two different, just like with Eve, it's two different seeds in her womb from two different sources. It's two different seeds in Rebecca's womb from two different sources. So here you go right here. He says, same thing that Amalek said to Jacob. To Isaac. He says, 25, what is this that thou hast done unto me? Did I not serve thee for Rachel? Wherefore then hast thou beguiled me? So then when he say beguiled me, he hoodwinked him. And that takes you back to the story in Genesis with Adam and with Eve and the serpent, when she was talking to the Lord. Oh, he said the serpent beguiled him. So my point is this, is all sexual connotations. And like he said right here, he said, what is it you done to me? That's after he laid with Leah. So that's what Amalek said, the same thing. Okay, so yeah, so something to think about. Let's just
Yes, sir. I see what you're saying.
Right. Yeah. Anybody else got anything on that? Chapter 29.
Yes, sir. When you said like beguiled, I think to me, listening to this particular part, it's like, why did you trick me? He tricked me. He hoodwinked, like you said, he hoodwinked me. He tricked me in thinking that I was going to get one daughter and wind up with the other daughter. So that's, to me, he tricked him. With beguile on this particular one, he was tricked because when we say that the children, how they saying the children begot, he begot this child, begot that child, meaning that the woman gave birth to the children that he had. He begot this one, that one, and that one. Is that a difference in that beguiling and beguiled, like trickery? Like you said, hoodwink?
That's two totally different things. But when
Right.
you see the beguile part, my point is this, and all three stories which is associated with this verse, a sexual act had already happened. That when they got to the point where they said they was beguiled, when you go to Eve, a sexual act had already happened. You go to Amalek, a sexual act already happened. And we see right here, he already laid with Leah. So in all three instances, the sexual act already happened. Intercourse already happened. Okay. So yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and I'll read chapter 30. It says Rachel gives Bilhah to Jacob. It says, and when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister and said unto Jacob, give me children, or else I die. And Jacob answered her, and Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel, and he said, am I in God's stead, who have withheld from thee the fruit of thy womb? And she said, behold, my maid Bilhah, go in unto her, and she shall bear unto my knees, that I may also have children by her. And she gave him Bilhah, her handmaid, to wife. And Jacob went in unto her, and Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. And Rachel said, God have judged me, and have also heard my voice, and have given me a son. Therefore called she his name Dan. And Bilhah, Rachel's maid, conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. And Rachel said, with great wrestling have I wrestled with my sister, and I have prevailed. And she called his name Atali. And when Leah saw that she had left bearing, she took Zipporah, her maid, and gave her Jacob to wife. And Zipporah, Leah's maid, bore Jacob a son. And Leah said, a troop cometh. And she called his name Gad. And Zipporah, Leah's maid, bore Jacob a second son. And Leah said, happy am I, for the daughters will call me blessed. And she called his name Asher. And Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest, and found mandrakes in the field, and brought them unto his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, give me, I pray thee, of thy son's mandrakes. Okay. And she said unto her, is it a small matter that thou hast taken my husband, and wouldst thou take away my son's mandrakes also? And Rachel said, therefore she shall lie with thee tonight for thy son's mandrakes. And Jacob came out of the field in the evening, and Leah went out to meet him, and said, thou must come in unto me, for surely I have hired thee with my son's mandrakes. And he lay with her that night. And God hearkened unto Leah, and she conceived and bore a son, the fifth son. And Leah said, God have given me my hire, because I have given my maiden to my husband. And she called his name Issachar. And Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a sixth son. And Leah said, God have endowed me with a good dowry. Now will my husband dwell with me, because I have borne him six sons. And she called his name Zebulun. And afterwards she bore a daughter, and called her name Dinah. And God remembered Rachel, and God hearkened unto her, and he opened her womb, and she conceived and bore a son, and said, God hath taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph, and said, the Lord shall add to me another son. And it came to pass, when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said unto Laban, send me away, that I may go unto mine own place, and to my country. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served thee, and let me go, for thou knowest my service which I have done thee. And Laban said unto him, I pray thee, if I have found favor in thine eyes, tarry, For I have learned by experience that the Lord hath blessed me for thy sake. And he said, appoint me thy wages, and I will give it. And he said unto him, thou knowest how I have served thee, and how the cattle was with me, for it was little which thou hadst before I came, and it is now increased unto a multitude. And the Lord hath blessed thee since my coming. And now, when I shall provide for mine own house also. And he said, what shall I give thee? And Jacob said, thou shalt not give me anything. If thou wilt do this thing for me, I will again feed and keep thy flock. I will pass through all thy flocks today, removing from thence all the speckled and spotted cattle, and all the brown cattle among the sheep, and the spotted and speckled among goats, and of such shall be my my hire. So shall my righteousness answer for me in time to come, and when it shall come for my hire before thy face, everyone that is not speckled and spotted among goats, the browns among the sheep, they shall be counted stolen with me. And Laban said, behold, I would it might be according to thy words. And he removed that day the goats that were ringed, shrieked, and spotted, and all the she goats that were speckled and spotted, and every one that had some white in it, and all the brown among the sheep, and gave them into the hands of his sons. And he set 3 days' journey between him and Jacob. And Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flock. And Jacob took him a rod of green poplar and of a hazel and chestnut tree, and peeled white straights into them, and made the white appear, which was in the rods. And he set the rods which he had peeled before the flocks in the gutters, in the watering troughs. And when the flocks came to drink, that they should conceive when they came to drink. And the flocks conceived before the rods, and brought forth cattle, green, shrieking, and speckled, and spotted. And Jacob did separate the lambs, and set the faces of the flocks toward the ring shriek, and all the brown in the flocks of the Laban. And he put his own flocks by themselves, and put them not unto Laban cattle. And it came to pass, when whosoever the stronger cattle did conceive, that Jacob laid the rods before the eyes of the cattle in the gutters, that they might conceive among the rods. But when the cattle were feeble, he put them not in. So the feebler were Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's. And the man increased exceedingly, and had much cattle, and manservants, and maidservants, and camel, and asses. So that was Genesis 30. Anybody got anything on that? Any feedback? So we see right here that the Lord increased Jacob. So just like we see, he increased, he opened all these 4 women womb up, and Jacob had all these sons. Well, he also got to provide for them. It's the Lord of hosts' responsibility to provide for them. So just like he brought all these kids forth, he had to bring forth wealth for Jacob to maintain them. That's how you work. Okay. Anybody else got anything on that? Okay. Chapter 31. Jacob leaves Laban. And he heard the words of Laban's son, saying, Jacob hath taken away all that was our father's, and of that which was our father's have he gotten all this glory. And Jacob beheld the countenance of Laban, and behold, it was not toward him as before. And the Lord said unto Jacob, return unto thy land with thy fathers, and to thy kindred, and I will be with thee. And Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field unto his flock. And he said unto them, I see your father's countenance, that it is not toward me as before, but the God of my fathers have seen with me, have been with me, and ye know that with all my power I have served your father, and your father hath deceived me and changed my wages 10 times. But God suffered him not to be hurt. If he said thus, the speckle shall be thy wages, then all the cattle are bare speckle. And if he said thus, the ring sheep shall be thy hire, then bore all the cattle ring street. Okay. Thus God hath taken away the cattle of your fathers and given them to me. And it came to pass at that time that the cattle conceived, that I lifted up mine eyes and saw in a dream, and behold, the rams which leaped upon the cattle were ring-streaked, speckled, and grizzled. And the angel of God spake unto me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I said, Here I am. And he said, Lift up now thine eyes and see. All the rams which leap upon the cattle are ring-streaked, speckled, and grizzled. For I have seen all that Laman doeth unto thee. I am the God of Bethel, where thou anointest the pillar, and where thou vowest a vow unto me. Now arise, get thee out from this land, and return unto the land of thy kindred. And Rachel and Leah answered and said unto him, Is there yet any portion or inheritance for us in our father's house? Are we not counted of him strangers? For he have sold us and have quite devoured also our money. For all the riches which God hath taken from our father, that is ours, and our children's. Now then, whatsoever God hath said unto thee, do. Okay, the flight of Jacob. Then Jacob rose up and set his sons and his wives upon camels, and he carried away all his cattle and all his goods which he had gotten, the cattle of his getting which he had gotten in Panorama, for to go to Isaac his father in the land of Canaan. And Laman went to shear his sheep, and Rachel had stolen the images that were her father's, and Jacob stole away unawares of Laman the Syrian, in that he told him not, that he fled. So he fled with all that he had, and he rose up, passed over the river, and set his face toward the Mount Gilead. And it was told Laman on the third day that Jacob was fled, and he took his brethren with him and pursued after him 7 days' journey, and they overtook him in Mount Gilead. And God came to Laman the Syrian, in a dream by night, and said unto him, Take heed that thou speakest not to Jacob, either good or bad. Then Laman overtook Jacob, and Jacob had pitched his tents in the mount. And Laman with his brethren pitched in the mount of Gilead. And Laman said unto Jacob, What hast thou done, that thou hast stolen away unawares to me, and carried away my daughters as captives, taken with the sword? Wherefore did thou flee away secretly, and steal away from me, and did it not tell me, that I might have sent thee away with myrrh, and with songs, and with tabrets, and with harp, and hast not suffered me to kiss my sons and my daughters? Thou hast now done foolishly in so doing. It is in the power of my hands to do you hurt. But the God of your fathers spake unto me yesternight, saying, Take thou heed that thou speakest not to Jacob either good or bad. And now, though thou wouldest needs be gone, because thou so longest after thy father's house, yet wherefore hast thou stolen my gods? And Jacob answered and said unto Laban, because I was afraid, for I said, peradventure thou wouldst take by force thy daughter from me, with whomever thou findest thy gods, let him not live before our brethren, concerning thou what is thine with me, and take it to thee. But Jacob knew not that Rachel had stolen them. And Laban went into Jacob's tent, and into Leah's tent, and into the two maidservants' tents, but he found them not. Then went he out of Leah's tent and entered into Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the images and put them in the camel's furniture and sat upon them. And Laban searched all that tent, but found them not. And she said unto her father, let it not displease my lord, that I cannot rise up before thee, for the custom of a woman is upon me. And he searched, but found not the images. And Jacob was wroth and cried with Laban. And Jacob answered and said unto Laban, what is my trespass? What is my sin that thou hast so hotly pursued after me? Whereas thou hast searched all my stuff, what hast thou found of thy household stuff? Set it here before my brethren and thy brethren, that they may judge between us both. This 20 years have I been with thee. The ewes and thy she-goats have not cast their young, and the rams of the flock have not eaten that which was torn for beasts. I brought not unto thee. I bore the loss of it. Of my hand didst thou require it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Thus I was in the day, the drought consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sheep departed from mine eyes. Thus have I been 20 years in thy house. I served thee 14 years for thy 2 daughters, and 6 years for thy cattle, and thou hast changed my wages 10 times, except the God of my fathers, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me. Surely thou hast sent me away now empty. God hath seen mine affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked thee yesternight. Okay, the covenant between Jacob and Laban. And Laban answered and said unto Jacob, these daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and these cattle also are my cattle, and all that thou seest is mine. Okay, and what can I do this day unto these my daughters, or unto their children which thou hast born? Now therefore come thou, let us make a covenant, I and thou, and let it be for a witness between me and thee. And Jacob took a stone and set it up for a pillar. And Jacob said unto his brethren, gather stones. And they took stones and made a heap, and they did eat there upon the heap. And Laban called it Jegabah Dutha, but Jacob called it Gilead. And Laban said, this heap is a witness between me and thee this day. Therefore was the name of it called Gilead, and Mizpah. For he said, the Lord watch between me and thee when we are absent one from another. If thou shalt afflict my daughters, or if thou shalt take other wives beside my daughter, no man is with us. See, God is witness between me and thee. And Laban said to Jacob, behold this heap, and behold this pillar which I have cast between me and thee. This heap be witness, and this pillar be witness, that I will not pass over this heat to thee, and that thou shalt not pass over the heat and this pillar under me for harm. The God of Abraham and the God of Nahor and the God of their fathers judged between us. And Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered sacrifices upon the mount and called his brethren to eat bread. And they did eat bread and tarried all night in the mount. And early in the morning, Abram rose up, kissed his sons and his daughters, and kissed them, and Laban departed and returned into his place. So that was Genesis chapter 31. Okay. Any comments, questions on that? Okay. So with that being said, we're going to go to our, we're going to pick a scripture. If somebody got a scripture they want to read, we'll read it, then we'll break it down, talk about it, and we're going to close out. Somebody got a scripture they want to read? Nobody have a scripture? Okay, let me get one. Okay. Let me go to Isaiah 44. Isaiah 44. The verses, like I said, these verses, 5 verses is a prophecy, and we witnessing them right now. A lot of people don't know that, but it says that this prophesied that he will return and wake us up, pour his spirit out on us. Yet now hear, O Jacob, my servant, and Israel, whom I have chosen. Thus saith the Lord, that made thee and formed thee from the womb, which will help thee. Fear not, O Jacob, my servant, and thou Jezreel, whom I have chosen. For I will pour out water upon him that is thirsty, and floods upon dry ground. And I will pour my spirit upon thy seed, and my blessings upon thine offspring, and they shall spring up as among grass, as willow by the water courses. One shall say, I am the Lord's, and another shall call himself by the name of Jacob, and another shall subscribe with his hand unto the Lord, and surname himself by the name of Israel. And so, like I said, we can see this, especially the last 10 years and even the last 5 years, we can see this happening. It's intensifying. Israelites are waking up, finding out who they are, renaming themselves, surnaming themselves, and understanding that they've been hoodwinked. Okay. So with that being said, I'm gonna say shalom to everybody. Yeah, and I see everybody. We have our men's advanced Bible study tomorrow. The women can come in through YouTube, and then we have our Sabbath class on Saturday. We have our morning Sabbath class is at 10 to 12 a.m. Then we come back that evening at 6, and we close out the Shabbat. So until then, I'm gonna say shalom, shalom, and another shalom. I see everybody. We are our men's, like I said, we have our men's advanced Bible study tomorrow. Shalom.
Shalom, everyone.
I highly recommend that you get this book and you read it, because it's a must that you understand who God head is in the order that's in the Old Testament and Tanakh, because it's not the same as in the New Testament. And when you read this and you get an understanding, then the scriptures open up, and then you begin to understand. So I highly recommend that you get this book. It's the Elohim of Israel, and it's a breakdown on the word Elohim and who the God of Israel is, and the Godhead.